Well, another week has gone by. I'm still in my basement, and I'm likely to be for a while. And I'm talking about basically the same thing. A week ago, when we were all here together, we talked about how we're still weirdly behind in getting stuff figured out for the pandemic that we really should have figured out, honestly, months ago. Last week, we were talking about a quarantine facility in Toronto. The federal government had stepped up and said they were going to share some bucks so that people who didn't have a place to safely self isolate could find that. What we're talking about now is in the province of Ontario, but I'm sure other provinces are having very specific versions of this themselves. We in Ontario are having a testing crunch. Schools are open, kids are getting the sniffles. Most of them probably don't have COVID, but you can't go back to school. You can't go back to daycare until you have a negative test. So the testing capacity has been completely overwhelmed, not just by students, but by their close relatives, the people they live with, teachers. I know a couple personally who are teachers who were exposed to some kid who had a cough or had a runny nose or a fever, and then they had to go tested before they could return to the classroom. All of this was predictable. All of this, in fact, was actually predicted. It wasn't just predictable. People were predicting this, and Ontario is still getting flattened by the testing backlog. They're working on it, and they're working on increasing their surge capacity. But I'm kind of wondering why we're getting caught flat footed again. Specifically, this is a really interesting one. The Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, is saying that he's working with private sector partners, pharmacy companies, to shift a lot of the COVID testing to these pharmacies where the idea of the plan is that if you are not showing symptoms, if you're asymptomatic, you go to your local Shoppers Drug Mart, that they swab your nose, they handle all the testing. It was a way of taking a lot of the burden off the public testing system, right? Where the asymptomatic people go to the private sector, get a quick test, boom, get your result. Meanwhile, people who are sick, are showing symptoms, are at higher risk. The public system can focus on them. Makes perfect sense. Sounds like an amazing idea. Why are we only figuring it out as the second wave is arriving? Why are we figuring it out 6 months into this thing? This is a good idea now. It would have been a good idea 3 months ago. I was joking with someone earlier that we're going to have our second wave preparedness in place just in time for like the seventh wave. There are a lot of things we can be forgiving of governments for being caught by surprise the first time in a lot of ways. No one's ever done this before. This is new for everybody, including our political leaders and our emergency planners. So I have some willingness to forgive early missteps. The fact that there was going to be a second wave was known. The fact we were going to open our schools again was known. The fact that we were going to have a surge in tests once the schools open was known. We are figuring out how to deal with it on the fly again. Maybe that was forgivable for the first wave 6 months ago. It's not a good look now.